Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Test 1, 2, 3, 4.
transparent, experienced, reliable. IPv4.global, from Hilco Stream Bank. Backed by Hilco Global, IPv4.global has completed thousands of transfers. Our online marketplace serves address blocks and ASNs of all sizes and regions. Transparent, experienced, reliable. IPv4.global.
You don't call your mum via a chain of other people's phones. So why would your Australian network be any different? One Internet Exchange Service makes single-point national connectivity in the Australian market as simple as IAA. Carrier-neutral, high-performance, unmetered peering from IAA. Because your users deserve it.
In Asia, the IP address management is managed by an organization called APRICOT. Then, APRICOT appointed IDNIC, APG, to run the IP address management process, especially in Indonesia.
Team Cymru delivers no-cost threat monitoring to internet service providers and hosting providers who partner with us. Nimbus Threat Monitor gives you near real-time threat detection, illuminating the compromised assets on your network and those of your clients by correlating your network flows with our world-class IP reputation data. Saving and improving lives is Team Cymru's mission, and making the internet a safer place is integral to that mission. Take advantage of our peer signal threat detection today.
Was waiting patiently for the music to stop there. All right, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the first of the APRICOT conference sessions, and indeed the first APOP session. So for this session, we're running a panel discussion, probably a very appropriate one, timing, given what's going on around the world in the last couple of years. And I would like to introduce the panel moderator, Warwick Mitchell of ARNet. Warwick, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Philip. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the panel. We're going to be going through and having a good discussion about a number of natural disaster issues and bits and pieces. So before we get started, I'm going to just run through a quick little slide deck, and I will just give you some bits of information about the panelists, and we'll go from there. So today, sorry, I'm just getting it into the right place because it didn't want to go for a second. Share. Here we go. Hopefully you can all see this. We're going to be talking about operating the network when a natural disaster is a disaster, not a desert, is occurring. And we've got some great panelists today with us. We've got Chris Zane from the University of Hawaii, and we've got Richard Tamalian from RIANZ. We've got Simon Barrow from Fibre at Home in Bangladesh. We've got John Alexander from Aussie BB, Aussie Broadband, I should say. Yoshinuru Matozaki, or Maz for short, and Mali, and I'm really sorry, Mali, I can't pronounce your last name, but from the Tonga Communications Corporation. So some of the things that we're going to be talking about today is just having a conversation about the sort of natural disasters that we all experience across our various different regions. So flooding, in this particular case, this was an image that was provided to us from RIANZ in New Zealand, showing what could happen. Then earthquakes, pretty serious earthquakes and buildings being affected, data centers, things like that. Can you imagine your fiber being run along the railway lines and being affected by that earthquake and seeing how the railway tracks have been warped? That would be quite a significant one. We've got volcanic activities, such as we recently saw in Fiji. We have lava coming out of volcanoes in Hawaii and the impact that it has, where you can see the poles have been burnt down in bits and pieces. We also have situations where fire can occur when a car has a rollover or an accident, and that can affect the fiber that's running over the top. And then finally in Australia, bushfires. We have a combination of all of those sorts of things, but this one just gives you an example of the fire that went through in New South Wales last year. And this just gives you an idea of fiber doesn't like fire. And so this is the sort of thing that we're going to be talking about today. So the first thing I'd like to do is to call upon our panelists one at a time just to introduce themselves, and then we'll get underway with the questions. So with that in mind, I'm just going to stop sharing, and I was going to ask if Chris Zane could introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Warwick. Chris Zane from the University of Hawaii. I'm the network engineering manager over there. We take care of the system-wide network that connects 10 of the university campuses across 6 of the Hawaiian Islands. So we do the network between all campuses, as well as connectivity to the internet and the research education network.
Thanks very much for that, Chris. Richard, could I ask for you to just introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Richard, and I'm one of the engineers of RIANZ, and basically RIANZ is the New Zealand Research Network of New Zealand. So we take care of connectivity for the universities, research institutes, connecting them between themselves and to the international and REN community.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Richard. Simon, could I get you to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. This is Simon from Bangladesh. I work in a company called Fibre at Home. We are a national network company. We are an internet gateway, and we are a terrestrial company in Bangladesh.
Brilliant. John, could you do an introduction?
Yeah, John Alexander. I work at Aussie Broadband, network engineer. We're an ISP in Australia, mainly dealing with NBN, for those that are aware of what NBN is. And we also have our own fibre network rolling out as well. So very important with flooding and fires and so on.
Brilliant. Maz, could I get you to introduce yourself?
Yes, this is Maz. I'm working for Japanese ISP. We extend our network to Asia Pac and Europe and the US as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Maz. And Marley, could you introduce yourself?
Sorry. Yeah. Miley is from Tonga. I have to make a very small correction. Warren, actually not Fiji, but from Tonga.
Sorry,
also,
my apologies.
I work for Tonga Communication Corporation, where we do have internet service provider, and I'm one of the engineer in that team. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. So the first question I want to put to our panel is, what sort of natural disasters do you have and how do they affect you in your region? So I thought we'd sort of spin a little wheel and pick someone at random. So I'm going to go with John, if you could talk about your experiences.
We got bushfires, and they happen everywhere pretty much in Australia. We also have floods, obviously what's happening right now in Brisbane, and we've got some links out right now in Brisbane. Another natural disaster which hasn't been mentioned is also what would you call animal disasters. So where you have mice plagues or plagues in that proportion, because mice actually eat fibre very nicely, and they will cut fibre in rural areas very quickly, and you've got to go and find them. So basically they're the main ones that we have. We don't really have volcanoes in Australia, not for a long time. We have had a few earthquakes, but they're few and far between. So it's just basically bushfires, floods and vermin that cause havoc with our network.
Fair enough. Okay, Simon, what about you in that regard?
Oh yeah, in Bangladesh we really face flood, and also very often we face tornado. Flood is very common in some places in Bangladesh, and very often we face some tornado and heavy rain. This is the two factors we have to consider always building up the networks. But also, like as John said, like mouse love this yellow wares. And some of our POPs who are unmanned POPs are really very unlikely. We go there once in a week. So the mouse go into there because it's a good environment, is very good. It's cold, but when the mouse get into the cold area, but they try to hide themselves from the cold, and they enter into the ODFs, and they love this yellow and yellow wares, and they cut those. So mouse is another with our coastal damage. So these are things.
Fair enough. Marley?
Yep. The usual is the hurricane. We usually have a hurricane in this part of the Pacific. Sometimes we have a few tsunami warning, and in fact, we have a tsunami on one of the outer islands. But as you all aware, just last month that the volcanic eruption close to the main island, that is a new threat, and is a new disaster for us. So right now we know that it will be volcano is joined on the board for us. Is one of the disaster for the future. So that is a new thing happen, and of course is break our international cable, the internet. Thank you.
No worries. And Richard?
So one of the most common, natural disaster that happen in New Zealand, basically earthquakes, like everyone else, earthquake, fire, severe floodings caused by storms, or persistent low pressure system, like what happened to New Zealand in the last month. So road workers, fiber cut caused by someone digging along the road. So that's very common. So I'm not sure if you can consider that as a natural disaster, but those are the common things that affect the fibers in New Zealand.
Okay. And
other infrastructure,
anything else that impacts them from your perspective, or just those are the main ones?
Those are the common ones that affect, because, for example, the photo that you shown earlier, that's actually a bridge on the South Island that where the cable is laid along the bridge. So it actually been impacted by the fiber has been impacted by the flooding because of rising waters, and it actually damaged along the bridge. So yeah, that's one of the most common thing here in New Zealand.
Fair enough. Maz?
Yes. In Japan, we have many earthquakes, typhoons, landslides, sometimes volcanoes and tsunamis. We have about 500 earthquakes per day, including small ones. Also, Japan is mountainous, so if we have heavy rains, then that called landslides. We have about 1,500 landslides per year.
Fair enough. And finally, Chris?
It's pretty much the same thing as everyone else had mentioned. Fiber cuts due to fires, brush fires, human things, car accidents, floods and rodents. We also have submarine fiber cuts between the islands due to seismic events or other man-made objects. Hurricanes, which results in poles down, and it's usually the repair after the hurricanes that cause the outage, not the actual pole falling down itself. As Warwick had mentioned, lava flows, although those are very few and far between, and they're rather slow in developing. So a big one here in Hawaii too is power outages. A lot of our repeater sites go down because of no power.
Fair enough. So with that in mind, let's talk about how you take these sorts of situations into consideration when you're building your network. So Simon, do you want to start on that one?
To like Bangladesh, as I'm working in a company, we are building a network inside Bangladesh, and we have around like 40,000 kilometers of fiber. Some of are underground, some of are in over it, and some of with power grid cable. So,
sorry, I think Simon.
Power cable, these are very, very, but time we face some cable.
Simon, we lost you for a period there. You were breaking in and out. Could you repeat that? Sorry.
Yeah, can you hear me right now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. The thing is that in Bangladesh we face a tornado and typhoon, but those are really affecting our overhead cables. But there are some places in Bangladesh which are marked for heavy flooding. So on those areas we have to do these underground networks. Problem is that we take the data from our weather department, and let's say we analyze the 20 years of data. Which area is the flood affecting area? If I can name some of the districts are really flood affecting. So on those areas we have to use underground, but other than those we can use overhead, like some SS pole we can use to take overhead cable. Apart from that, in the bay areas, like in the south side of Bangladesh, where the Bay of Bengal Sea is there, so those areas are really corrosive. So on those areas we have to use some poles which are non-corrosive, like our fiber enclosure boxes we have to use in those kind of special box. A pole we have to use, we cannot use any kind of SS pole or metal pole. We have to use a concrete pole. So these kind of things we have to maintain. Also that.
Sorry, Simon, I'm going to just ask, can you just either move your microphone just a little bit back, because you're very crackly and breaking up when you're talking, just so that we can hear you clearly, because we heard you talking about the poles that you were using couldn't be metal or plastic. They had to be concrete. But the rest of it was a bit broken up around that, as you were talking about being near the sea and so forth.
And in the, what, can you hear me right now?
Yes, we can. We can hear you much clearer now.
Okay, okay. So as I am telling about the areas, so in the South Bay areas, south side of Bangladesh, we have to use a special kind of tool which are not corrosive, and in the north part, there's where there is too much river. So on those places, we can use any kind of tool. But what happened when the flood arise or like heavy rain arise, then if still we do underground, those cables are washed out. I found some of the incumbent operator for last 6 months, they couldn't retrieve their old fibers who were washed out in floods. So this kind of problem we face.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you very much for telling us about that. Maz, do you want to talk about what happens and what you think about when you're doing it in Japan?
Yes, we have improved the reliability by using different fiber load and also distributing major equipment in different areas. Since there are many disasters in Japan, many industries are working to improve the reliability and resiliency of their services, like by making building or power grids and fiber conduit more reliable. We can ensure stable internet use. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Richard?
Yes, so definitely these natural disasters are considered whenever we are building a resilient and reliable network. So for us, at minimum, for some of our point of presence, or most of our point of presence, really, we design it in a way that it has at least a minimum of 2 connectivity to other POPs. In that way, if one fiber is cut, then that POP is not isolated at all. So that's the minimum. So we also take into consideration, the fiber path that is used by those 2 fibers at least, because you might have 2 fibers, but they're actually sharing a common ducting or single entrance exit into the building, or common road, or even common local fiber companies. So you actually have to ensure that they are, separate, not actually sharing anything at all. And that's on the trying to ensure a reliable network during these natural calamities. But also there's also some kind of, like on a chassis-based hardware, you need to actually ensure that, you have redundant line cards or power supply, power feed, things like that. So those are all considered in designing the network for a reliable network.
Fair enough. And Marley?
Yeah, from us, it's really hard. We only have a single cable provider, and not only that, but we only have a single international fiber overseas. So regardless of what we have within our network, once we have that single fiber cut, that's it. We have no more access to the internet. So even in the government level, we don't have any redundancy on the cable provider. For us, service provider, we have to find our own redundancy path to the internet, and the only thing that we have at the moment is a satellite connections. That's what we have so far. And just last week we recovered our international fiber, but some of our the remain of our domestic fiber is still not yet fixed. So we still have satellite connection to the remote islands. So yeah, we have we consider the natural disaster within our network, but in the international connectivity to the international level, which is we don't have that. Like I said, right now we only have a single fiber. This year, the government is looking to have a redundancy, and we are hopeful to have that second fiber come into play maybe some more months from now. With that, then we can have some redundancy. But apart from that, we only have we do consider NATO disaster. We have we distribute our equipment within our network to several sites. Actually, we have only 3 sites. So yeah, like I said, we have that at the moment within our network. But like I said, we have only single exit overseas. So it doesn't really matter, because when we have that single fiber cut, that's it. We have to scramble, and even the satellite, we don't have the resource. I mean the resource to pay the satellite. What we have for those satellite backup, we only have 1 meg Mbps. We have to maintain that 1 Mbps. So whenever the fiber is cut, then we have that we have that 1 meg link through the satellite to negotiate, and we can increase to whatever capacity we want. Yeah, to answer the question, yes, we considered it in our within our internal network. But like I said, the connection to the internet, we still we only have at the moment, we only have 1 cable. Hopefully within a few months or next year we have another one as a redundancy. Thank you, Warren.
No, that's great. Thank you. Chris, do you want to talk about your experiences in that regard?
Sure, Mark. So yes, we do take into consideration redundancies to ensure survivability during natural disasters. The university actually doesn't own any of its the fiber that we use. We obtain it from a local cable company. So we work with the cable company to ensure that the paths that the actual strands are taking is known, so we don't double up like a collapsed ring where a single cable could take out the entire ring. We try to build everything on a ring base so that each site has at least 2 ways out. We also run passive optical things through sites where we can, so that it's not dependent on power outages, so that the ring maintains its survivability. And we also try to design for multiple ring failures where we can, using other circuits from specific sites coming back to the main campuses, so that in the event that the ring does fail, there is still redundancy around certain paths. And between islands, we're dependent on 1 or 2 submarine fibers that are, in the 20-25 year range. We do maintain our digital microwave circuits between the islands. They're much lower bandwidth, but they do provide enough capacity for basic business purposes for the university. Right.
Thank you very much for that. And I would just note that on the chat, there was a question which I will be answering later in the conversation, but it is one of the ones that's on my list to ask the team. So I will come back to that shortly in regards to the pandemic. Finally, John.
Yep, as the others have said, redundancy, as in at least 2 links to everywhere, is a must, especially with broadband connections. And very quickly on the pandemic, everybody works from home. So if you have an outage due to a fiber cut, they'll get very upset very quickly if you don't have it back up and running. So you need to have backup paths. We try most of our intercity link, well, all of our intercity links are via other carriers where we lease from them. And they're, as the others have said, they could be over the same fiber physical path. So we normally have a coastal route, so it goes along the sea, and then a second one via inland route. So if something floods on the coast, then hopefully on the inside that keeps going happily for you. Data center wise, we may have say 4 or 5 data centers in say for example Sydney, but they'll be more meshed. They're not necessarily all in a ring, so that even if we had a couple of links go down, they're still able to talk to one another. But to all of our POPs that we connect to for NBN in Australia, it's a must that we have 2 connections via 2 diverse paths, whether it's via our own fibre or via Telstra as a provider. They need to be via diverse. However, diverse, and I think this is a question coming up, isn't necessarily always the best thing. It doesn't always work.
Fair enough. So that leads into the next question that I was going to ask the panelists, which is 2 enough? And I think the answer we've gotten here so far is probably not. So sometimes it may be necessary to have triversity or even quadversity, depending on the scenarios. And then there's, as Marley talked about, there's situations where you can't control the fact that there is only one cable coming into a region. And that could be that, you know, it's a region that is solid granite. It's impossible to drill through, or it might be very common to have bushfires through it, so you can't do overhead power lines with overhead fiber and things like that. So I guess the question that I wanted to ask the panel is, you know, have you been ever caught out where really you wanted 3 or more circuits, and maybe can you give an example of a situation where that would have been really useful? So John, seeing how you're on my screen, I'm going to stick with you and then we'll ask the others.
Yeah, one of them, which has happened a few times, is our links to Darwin. Our main link goes from Adelaide to Darwin straight up the centre via Alice Springs. And our backup path goes from Adelaide to Perth and then via the coast up to Darwin. We've had cases where both links have failed due to 2 different issues. One was a fibre cut on a crocodile farm. I had to get the word crocodile in there. But we also had, at the same time, that was from Adelaide to Darwin, but at the same time there was a power outage in one of the relay sites between Darwin and Perth. So that then went down. So that took our Darwin link offline. There is a 3rd path via Darwin to Brisbane, but we don't have a connection on there. But that's definitely a case of having 3 paths is better than 2. And mainly because Darwin is so far away from everywhere. You've got like a 4,000 kilometre fibre path that you might only have for everywhere else 100 kilometres, and that so have minimal risk of getting a cut. For a 4,000 kilometre path, it's very easy to get something along multiple stretches on multiple paths. So yeah, Darwin's one of the bad ones.
Fair enough.
And we would have loved to have had a triple.
Fair enough. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, the more the better. Of course, there's always the costs that rear their ugly head, and we have to justify whether or not it's worth the money to build that 3rd site or that 3rd link. We did have a situation, much like John had mentioned, where there was multiple failures that isolated part of our network. There was a fiber cut in one section of the network, and then a power outage, and someone forgot to upgrade the UPS and it died, and that knocked off a couple of our campuses because the ring was broken. And in that case, that was a couple of years ago. Since then, we've built up a 3rd link out of one of the campuses on that far end of the ring through another carrier, another commercial circuit, and that's basically the 3rd link out. So if we had a fiber cut and a power failure somewhere, at least that portion of the ring has a backup path to the network. So again, if we can afford it and it makes sense and it justifies the means, then the more links you have, the better there are.
Fair enough. Maz?
Yes. Of course, 2 is highly recommended, and the more if available. But please make sure you keep a simple and consistent network design. If it's too complicated, then it affects your usual or day operation. And actually, we had the disaster in 2011. We had a huge earthquake that affected our international submarine cables. Actually, 7 out of 12 fiber routes were affected. So some services affected badly, but luckily we had enough capacity, and even during the delayed period, so our customer probably didn't notice that event. But please make sure you have enough capacity, but not too complicated way.
Absolutely, and I think it's interesting the way you put that, as well as what Chris said, where there is you can build a gold-plated network for a cost, but you've got to compare that to the risk. And do they actually equal each other? And where do you draw the line from a business perspective and being viable in that regard? Richard, do you have any thoughts on that from Rianne's perspective?
Yes, absolutely. It is common in our network to have at least more than 2 connections for our major POPs, where it provides connection for critical connectivity for customers, for cache servers like Google, Facebook, Netflix, and CDNs. Nationally, those are quite important POPs. So at least they have to have at least 2 connection, one northbound, one southbound, and another across. And internationally, at least we have at least 2 connections that we don't isolate ourselves in New Zealand. We're quite far away. So at the moment, we actually have at least 3 connections, 2 in Sydney, SY1, SY4, and 1 in Honolulu. So yes, so as mentioned, of course, whenever building a diversity in your network, it is important to factor in the costs as well, because the more diversity that you would put in, the greater the costs involved that will incur. And then, of course, you need to have a buy-in for example, for research network. You just don't build it because you can, and you need also to, factor in the cost in the building that kind of diversity. And it's not easy to find. Sometimes it's not easy to find the balance because you need to risk and cost. So yeah, definitely that's factoring.
No worries. I think the other thing that, given everything you guys have said to us, have you thought about the fact that maybe should the government do a once every 2-year drill to test the ability of the fiber providers? I saw John's eyebrows just go up then when I said this, in the sense of running a disaster recovery process test, or just to seeing what would happen in these sorts of scenarios, or do they happen regularly enough that we kind of do this automatically by ourselves and we can make those risk assessments as a business? I'll start with this time. I'll start with Maz first.
Yeah, maybe a scenario-based and a lesson or a drill will help to check our reliability or preparation for such kind of event. But it's a preparation for non-event. The point of disaster is beyond our assumption. That is a problem. So yes, preparation is important. So it's valuable to have such a drill, but that's not enough.
Fair enough. Marley, I can see you're there. So let's ask you. What do you think of that one?
Yes, I agree. But I think, like I said earlier on, not sure how we can do that drill with a single fiber. So we are hopeful. We are hopeful that we'll, like I said, our Prime Minister mentioned already this year that we will have a second fiber, and we are looking forward to that down the road to have that second connection. Then we will be able to do that. But of course, I agree to that. That's the right thing to do, and because when disaster happen, we all panic. So it's good if we can do those things beforehand. in times that is normal. So when those times come, you are ready to do that, to do what you are doing.
Fair enough.
Thank
John,
you.
did you have any thoughts on this one?
Most two would be, if you've designed the network okay, that you know that your backup path works properly and it's tested, then you should be fine, as in should, in quotes. The other one would be, I don't know how a private company or private companies would like a government coming along and just unplugging a fiber to test something. That might get a little bit annoying to the network operators.
Absolutely, but it's an interesting question, because it's, as you've mentioned, you buy your capacity from others. How do you know their disaster recovery process? How do you know their upstreams recovery process? These are all things that are, as Maz put to, when things go wrong, you don't know where they're going to go wrong in the chain, but they'll go wrong somewhere. And so with that, I want to change tack slightly. And this is coming back to the COVID pandemic conversation question that came up in the chat, which is, what are some of the things that caught you by surprise with the whole COVID situation, where people were restricted, they couldn't travel, or you couldn't get parts because transport was affected by trucks not being able to deliver bits and pieces, or airplanes no longer traveling as much as they were, so there was impacts on courier services and things like that. So let's start with Richard. How did that impact you guys?
For us Rians, we're actually quite lucky that even beforehand we already adopted a flexible arrangement where we can work from home. So we've set up the network to accommodate that. So whenever, if we are, for example, are not allowed to travel to the office, stay at home, then you can always connect and support the network. And also that's for us as a company. For our membership or our customers, of course, we definitely offer some assistance on them to how to actually assist them in providing connectivity for their students or even their staff. So for example, we've helped a member to set up their VPN connection because they were in panic. They actually don't have anything set up at all. They're just reacting to what has happened. So those are the things that you should be able to assist the customer in providing that consultancy and expertise to help them come up with a solution. In that context, really. So that's one of the examples.
Okay, John.
When the pandemic first started, the main issue we had was our call centers were all in a call center. All of a sudden, they all had to work from home, and we had to set up massive amounts of VPNs to be able to make them all happen. So a few days or weeks, and then it was all good again. But that was a major impediment just by itself, being able to have people answer phones still. With regards to installing things, we normally would fly from Melbourne, for example, to Perth to install something, but then all of a sudden we've got border restrictions and we can't travel between states. So we had to start recruiting remote hands to be able to build things remotely for us that we normally would do ourselves. So all of a sudden that's a thing that we just didn't have. So that had to get done and quickly to make everything keep happening. So now we've got people working remotely that we physically haven't seen. They've been there, but they haven't visited us yet. They're still working for us. We just don't see them.
Fair enough. And have you had to take into account we talked about the fact of getting hardware installed and physically going somewhere to do something, but there's also the non-tangibles with the pandemic, which was the sudden increase in actual user traffic from home networks. And so increasing to use the term for Australia with NBN, the backhaul connection, the CVCs, and maintaining the appropriate bandwidth. And then obviously not only that, but your peering and transit services, making sure you got the upgrades and so forth in, would also have been an impact.
we had traffic increases of about 40%. Just basically overnight, everybody's working.
So yeah, I can totally imagine where that could come in and impact you. Maz, thoughts from that one?
Yes. Of course, we can work from home, so most of our job can be done remotely. But what I was surprised about is delivery time of equipment. Routers, switches, fibers are getting longer and longer. So it's like we need to wait 1 year to install new gear into our data centers nowadays. So that's a big surprise.
Okay.
And traffic-wise, yes, we see some increase, but not that radical way, because the people are working from remote and mostly from home. That increases the traffic daytime. But our usual peak time is night, so not
Fair
that impact our network.
Simon, are you still there?
Yeah.
Yep. How did it impact you?
In pandemic, yeah, this is a different kind of experience, I should say. There's a good side, there's a bad side. Good side is that there is no traffic in the road. There is people couldn't work, like the utility people couldn't work. So there is no road cut. So there is little amount of fiber cut. So that saved us. So that's the good side, I should say. The bad side is that already Mars told that we have to increase our network drastically. Where there was like 100 gig per lambda, we have to increase that with 200 gig per lambda. After this pandemic, we are now installing everything 800 gig per lambda. So the pandemic gave us a different vibe for a commercial company like where I'm working. And also after post-pandemic, now we are a shortage of a spectrum. Like in a light, we are using a C band right now, but our C band is all full. Now we are using, we are trying to use the extended, the super C band, and also we are extending to the L band so that our spectrum efficiency and spectrum length can be increased. So pandemic, yes, that kind of problem we have faced. But the good side for a commercial company that the traffic has already increased about 50%. So that's a good sign. Though whether we are working, still that pays off.
Fair enough then. Chris, any comments from your side?
Well, the university traffic certainly dropped off during the pandemic because no one was on campus, so it was great. But the most difficult part for us was doing maintenance at the remote sites. Typically, we would fly out, or our operations team would fly out from the main island to the neighbor islands, but we couldn't do that, so we had to solicit the help of the on-site campus IT folks. So there was quite a bit of a training curve for that, but we got through that for the most part.
Fair enough. Mali?
Yes, pandemic. We just have our COVID case last month, and last 30th of January. We don't really have any impact on us. I think that's the only thing I get. There's not much difference in our traffic. Because most of the traffic is not related to web stuff, I would say. Our traffic mostly is social media. So, yeah, I think I would say that there is not much difference to us during the pandemic. And just now we have our COVID cases last month, and yeah, I think that's I can say, Warren.
Okay. So I guess one of the things that we didn't touch on in that conversation was also, Maz talked about the time it takes to actually get hardware, but also the time it takes to train someone on things you need to do that normally you would take into account yourself, as John alluded to, like putting fuel in a generator. Actually having someone who is available to be on hand to actually go drive out and put fuel in the generator every 12 hours if something's gone wrong with a power supply to a location, etc. So there's lots of different things that have affected us all in different ways. But the final thing that I wanted to ask the group is, what are the lessons that we've learned through all of these natural disasters? From the pandemic to, as Marley put, the eruption near Tonga, the undersea earthquakes that affected Maz in terms of Japan, the earthquakes in New Zealand, the bushfires in Australia. What are the things that we've all come to go, oh, we should definitely make sure we do more of this? Or is there an interesting story where something that you thought you had handled didn't go the way you expected? So I'm going to give Maz a crack at this one first because he's smiling. So I'll give Maz the first go.
Okay. In the event of that disaster, we have seen that consumers are using the internet a little bit differently. For example, we see a trend of slight increase in upload from the customer side. So probably people sharing something or sending data from home to the internet if the internet is available in the disaster area. I think we need to pay attention to this trend in the future. And another important message is prepare well. Let me quote a message from a book written by the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport, and Tourism of Japan. It's a book about their lesson learned from the Great Eastern Japan earthquake in 2011. The message is, we made all possible preparations. What we prepared was still not enough. So preparation is important, as I said, but there could be a disaster beyond our assumptions. So we should work together, learn each other, and make a better future. That's my comment.
Okay, I'll just add one part to that, Maz, which is a question that's come in on the chat channel, which is, do you guys have any team that looks at risks overall and makes a calculated decision on the risks that we've talked about various risks that exist that we've talked about, but risks that are unknown, like a bridge collapsing, taking out fiber. There are certain things that we can mitigate, but they're things that do happen. A vendor not being able to supply in time, or a hardware failure. So, what happens when your device breaks and your vendor can't get you an RMA within a certain time period? Those sorts of things. Is there anyone within your organization that does these sorts of risk calculations or looks into these sorts of things or thinks about it?
For us, of course, we have a network operation on the network setup division. They are responsible to deliver the service, but if they can't, they are consulting with executives in our company. So my advice is communicate internally well to share the existing, based on the existing information. Then they can decide which they need to prioritize to deliver services or to extend some existing services, right? So communication is important.
Fair enough. John, do you have any stories that you can elaborate on?
Not really a story as such, but one that if you have something go down remotely, make sure you have sufficient documentation that's accessible to everybody that would be dealing with that fault, as in if it's not, it may be stored locally or it might be stored in somebody's head. You've got to be able to retrieve that information to be able to help restore something if it's broken. It's no good if it's not accessible. So you've got to be able to have that available. But yes, we do have a risk team that look at all manner of things, and ones might be just making sure that you've got hot spares or standby spares in important data centers so that you can easily recover things quickly instead of having to transport them across the country if that's possible.
Fair enough. Mali, can I ask if you've got any lessons learned during well, given that you're probably the one that's had the most recent natural disaster to deal with?
Yes. What we have learned is that the importance of the redundancy. Like I said, even though we are looking to have a second fiber coming in the future, but if we have those, I think that is not enough. Still, we still need satellite connections, given that diversity is not enough. Because this new natural disaster volcano that just happened, it was a really big one. It both domestic and international fiber being cut. So even though we will have two, it is possible those two connection can be damaged due to natural disaster in the future. So we think we still need the satellite connections, given that I'm sure that we won't be able to have a free cable. So I think that's a thing that we are aware of. We will always need the satellite given in our situation from Tonga. Just like what I said, I think that's the main thing that. And of course, it's always the cost of those satellite. It will be very hard to have some resource to maintain the capacity that that would be possible for us to fail over traffic, at least portion of traffic. So this means we will with those if we have those satellite capacity, we will have to maintain a very minimal capacity. So whenever the cable cut, then we will have to negotiate with the provider to increase to whatever we want in the time. Yeah, I think that's what we have learned. Even though we will have a second fiber, of course, we still have to have some third, or I would say we will still have to have satellite. I think that's the only option. That's the only third option for us. In order for us to have a kind of redundancy that would be able to give us connectivity whenever a major natural disaster in the future. Yeah, I think that's what I can input on that, Warren.
Okay, I have one final question on that. When the actual eruption occurred and the cable was interrupted and so forth, and you guys failed back to the satellite service, was there any impact because of that to your ability to get in touch with people to start the restoration process? Given, or
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Like
in the sense of, that. I mean, for most of us, 1 megabit is a very small amount, and you're trying to share that across the whole island.
Yes.
That's why I thought I'd ask the question.
In fact, how we restore the connection, it take us like 2 days, because the communication we have to use New Zealand, not New Zealand, sorry, the Australian Defence satellite phone. That's how we have to. Because we have like I said, we have a 1 Mbps with another provider, which we find out the modem breaks in the time when the cable cut. So we have to look for another option. The second option comes in, we have the second provider, but the terminal, I think, was not registered or something. So we have to find some means to communicate to them through on third parties, and like I said, we use luckily some of the HiCom Australian, we have to use the phone, the satellite phone, to do the communication.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how we restore the connection, and it take us 2 days.
I totally get it, and that's the sort of thing that you don't think about in the sense of, oh, I can't pick up the phone and call somebody. There's an even bigger problem. Yeah.
TCC have a satellite phone, but I think it was not charged.
Fair enough.
For some reason, yeah, because the things were working with the cable, and we didn't really no one's really thought that this gonna happen, but yeah, it's happened very quick, and it was very quick. Yeah, that's how we restore the connection. Yeah,
fair enough. Simon, do you have any comments on lessons learned over the course of natural disasters and the pandemic?
Yes, the thing is that I think the more you increase the number, like the connectivity from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, yes, it will increase the resiliency of your network. But like last 2 months back in Mumbai, all the 3 cables from Mumbai towards Europe was cut. So all the traffic from Bangladesh and South Asia is routing from Singapore, and then again it is going to a different cable. So latency again high. So if you increase the number, yes, somehow it will create the resiliency, but you don't know when the pandemic will come or when the next natural disaster will come. For example, like presently in the SLA for the force major one, I should say that we should write this word pandemic and war together in a big way, because war is made by man-made, right? And that thing is happening in some places of the world. So we cannot predict it. But what we can do, that like John said, obviously, like in my company, we have a compliance team and also a risk mitigation team. So 2 teams are working each other, and 2 team is blaming each other every day. This thing is not good, this thing is bad. So that's kind of motivation should be done. And thirdly, I should say that all the documents we have right now, we have to have a digitalized document, so that if anything goes wrong, we can always find a reroute path. So that's the thing we need. What happens when any kind of disaster comes, we are always have a lack of document. So digital documentation and easy to find out is very important for a network operator. Thank you.
Fair enough. We've got 2 more minutes, and I'm just going to give one final comment. The one thing that we haven't talked about here, and I think it's really important, is that during the pandemic and during natural disasters, the one thing that has really stood out from my perspective is the ability to engage with our fellow providers and say, hey, we're going to have a problem. You know, is there a way you can help me? Can you loan me an SFP? Can you loan me a cable? Can you loan me a router? You know, the one thing that I'll say that's been good about the whole thing is the fact that it has highlighted that we can work together. Even though businesses compete against each other, there is a time and a place for competing and a time and a place for just getting what needs to be done. So the other thought that I'll put to that is, and Maz alluded to this earlier, is the ability for people and friends and families to find out if their loved ones are okay. So the engagement with the local Red Cross or organizations, and making sure that the communication, so that people can, like Facebook had that are you okay page to say, you know, you're in this location or that location. This goes to the current situations where, you know, we've got friends and families that might be impacted by the current situation going on in the Ukraine. You know, there are, you know, people affected by the earthquakes, volcanoes, things like that. It also highlights that it's the sort of things that we also need to make the efforts to try and make sure that those lines of communication are available to the end users in these sorts of situations. Because it's not just about watching cat videos on YouTube or things like that. It's about being able to connect to each other. And I really want to say thank you very much to everybody on the panel today for being available and answering all these questions, and answering also the questions in the chat as we've been going. So with that, thank you very much to our panelists, and we really appreciate your efforts today. And thank you so much for joining us today. And if there are any other questions that people would like to ask, please let us know, and we will try and get the panel to answer them via email and go from there. But thank you very much, especially for those in late time zones, for joining us. and really do appreciate your efforts for joining us tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Warwick.
Thank you,
everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Warwick. Thank you very much to all the panel members as well. Been a very, very interesting panel discussion, and I'm sure all the participants will have learned quite a lot from all the various experiences that you've been able to share. So we really appreciate that. As you can see on the screen, we have a poll about the session. So if you'd like to fill that one up for all the participants. So that brings us to the end of the first day of the conference, but we're not finished yet. So please don't go away. We now have, what are we doing now? We now have time for our quiz. And our quiz master, Gerardo, has joined us. So the quiz is about today, about last week, about the internet, about anything and everything. And we have a $50 voucher to give away to the winner. So Gerardo, I think the quiz is all yours.
Thank you. Let's take it away. So welcome everybody to our first APRICOT 2022 Kahoot quiz. Thank you. My name is Gerardo Vidier, and I am your quiz master. We are broadcasting today from a Bitcoin wallet, and I have to say it's getting kind of empty in here. So let me explain to you how to play this game. First of all, you have to go to kahoot.it, www.kahoot.it, or you can also use the Kahoot app. You'll see a game pin being asked, and that is that number that you see on the screen, 202027. So once you log in, you'll have to put in a nickname, of course. If you put in your registration number with your nickname, it'll be much easier to find you. Oh! If you want the prize, of course. So you can also take a screenshot at the end of the game, because that will also show in which position you were. And I'm going to show you one question, and you have 20 seconds to get the right answer. There are 4 possible answers, but only one. Well, I think only one. I don't know. Maybe there might be some trick questions there. Whatever. And then the person who gets the right answer the fastest gets the most points. And at the end of the round, we have 12 questions. We will see who is our number one. So I see people are still joining, and I'm going to see if we are ready to start. Let's give you just a couple more seconds. That's right, Mr. Turkey, a couple more seconds. And let's see who has the fastest fingers, the fastest brain, and the fastest eyes, because you have to see the answer right away. Very quick and very fast. So I think we have around 33 players. That's a really nice number. Shall we start? In 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Boom. First question is, suspense is killing me. The first question is, how many panel discussions are scheduled for APRICOT 2022? Is that 1? Is that, oh no? Or is that, oh yeah? 5, 6, 4, or not enough? We always say there's never enough, but we always say there's always too much. So what'll it be? 5, 6, 4, not enough. And the correct answer is 5. We have 5 panel discussions for schedules for APRICOT 2022. Let's see what the leaderboard says. GW at the front, VJ, Peering Man, Maz, and not me. I'm not at the top. On to our next question. Which edition of APRICOT is this? If you don't know, then you're probably in the wrong place. So is it a super duper deluxe edition? Is it number 28? Is it number 27? Or is it number 26? That's right, little horsey. I know the answer, but do you? 28, 26, 27, or the super duper deluxe edition? And the right answer is 27. That is the one we are in right now. On to the scoreboard. Peering Man taking the lead. Mole D, GW, Terry S, and VJ. Question number 3. How many continents are connected by submarine fiber? Is it 8? Is it 6? Is it 5? Is it 7? Is it? That's right, Fido. It is that number. 5, 6, 7, 8. Which one is it?
Initiate countdown.
No, 8, 7, 6, 5. Which one is it? Come on. And the right answer is 6. There are 6 continents connected by submarine fiber. I'd rather like to know how many of you think that there are 8 continents. Time to check on Wikipedia. Next question. First, the leaderboard. We have Peering Man sit at the front, Mole D, KL5BN, GW, and Andrew. Question number 4. According to Jack Haverty, what was going to eventually replace TCP/IP? No, Mrs. Cow, it was not that. So was it OSI, was it DECnet, was it AppleTalk, or was it the telegraph? One of these 4 inventions was going to eventually replace TCP/IP. So OSI, DECnet, AppleTalk, or the telegraph? And it was OSI. Most of you got that right. 3 people thought the telegraph could have been the replacement. Well, who knows? Maybe when the submarine cables get cut. KL5BN, GW, Kevin, Andrew, Peering Man, still winning. On to our next question. What does APNIC stand for? No! That is not a difficult question. Come on. APNIC stands for Asia Pacific Network Internet Center, Asia Pacific Node Information Center, Asia Pacific Network Information. It's very difficult to read this. Or any practical, never intended comedy. So Asia Pacific is in all 3 of them, and the right one, Asia Pacific Network Information Center. Yes, I tricked you with that one. Asia Pacific Network Internet Center is not it. Ha ha ha. On to the next one. But first, the leaderboard, KL5BN, at the lead, Kevin, Nan, SBS, and GW. Question number 6.
Oh no!
What percentage of prefixes in the IPv4 table have a valid ROA? So the right answer is, why is IPv4 still here? Is it 45%? Is it 25%? Or is it 35%? So how many of these have a ROA? 45%, 25%, 35%, or why is IPv4 still here? Oh! And the right answer is 35%. Of all the prefixes, only 35% have a ROA. Isn't that crazy? There should be more. And at the front, still KL5BN, the fastest finger, the fastest brain. Kevin, SBS, Terry S, and Nan. But anything can go wrong here. So let's see. How many autonomous systems are visible using IPv6 in today's internet? So around 27,000, around 26,000, around 28,000, or what is IPv6? And if you have to answer that question, that's right, Flipper. We shouldn't be asking that question anymore. So 26,000, 27,000, or 28,000. What? And the right answer is 28,000. Around 28,000 are still systems are visible using IPv6. KL5B and Kevin, SBS, GWP, Paul W.
It's time to party.
That's right. It's time to party. Let's go on to the next question. Question number 8. Who of the following is a platinum sponsor of APRICOT 2022? Is it Team Cymru? Is it Google? Is it Digital Edge? Or is it the ISOC? Yes, Mr. Elephant, I remember. I know what it is. So Team Cymru, Google, Digital Edge, or ISOC. Which of these is a platinum sponsor? And if you guessed it right, it was Team Cymru. Team Cymru, platinum sponsor of APRICOT. Leaderboard says KL5BN still at the lead, Kevin T coming in, SBS, and GW. On to question number 9. Where is the main source of information for operators to research who to peer with? So if I want to peer with somebody, where do I go look? The IXPDB, the peering DB, NOG mailing list, or the social media? So social media, NOG mailing list, the peering DB, or the IXPDB? Which one of these is the main source of information? And it is the peering DB overwhelmingly. Leaderboard says KL5BN, still at the lead. Kevin T, SBS, and GW. It didn't really change much. On to question number 10. How are APNOG and APNIC related? Are they associated companies? Are they co-organizers of APRICOT? Do they have the same front door, or are they technical training partners? There goes the answer, speeding away. Which one of these is it? Do they have the same front door, technical training partners, associated companies, or co-organizers of APRICOT? And the right answer is co-organizers of APRICOT. Well done. Leaderboard still says KL5BN at the front. Kevin, GW, SBS, and T. GW took a really big leap. Question number 11. We have 2 more to do. Who is this speaker? Quickly, quickly. Is it Jack Haverty and Phil Smith? Is it Jeff Houston, or is it the Quizmaster? Ha ha ha. Quizmaster, Jack Haverty, Phil Smith, or Jeff Houston? Who is this person? I have no idea. There's still not enough information. It looks familiar. I don't know. Who is this? Who is this? Oh, yes, it is.
It's time to party.
Yes, it's time to party with Philip Smith. You all got it all right. Leaderboard says KL5BN at the front, Kevin, GW, SBS, and T. This looks like it's going to be a really close tie. So, last question. What version of BGP is used on today's internet? Is it version 4.1? Is it version 3? Is it version 4? Or is it version 1.4? One of these versions is the right one. Version 3, version 4, version 1.4, version 4.1. That sounded like a rap almost. And the right answer is, of course, BGP version 4. That is the current version. Now let's see who is at the front. T on number 3. KL5BN, and surprise, we have number 1, Kevin. Yes. Very well. Well played, Kevin. You came in at the last and really fast. So thank you, everybody, for playing, and congratulations to the winner. Remember to take a screenshot of the end results so you can claim your prize. We hope you all had fun and learned something new. So continue enjoying the following sessions at APRICOT 2022. We will be back again tomorrow to give you another chance to show you, well, how to dance. That was a bad joke. Anyways, have fun, enjoy the APRICOT, and I'll see you tomorrow.
That was great. Thank you so much, Gerardo. So I hope you all had some fun. Congratulations to Kevin, the winner. Kevin, please get in touch with the Secretariat to claim your valuable prize. So drop your details in the chat or write to secretariat@apricot.net. So thank you for all this. We're going to have a 5-minute break. And then please stay on here on this Zoom session. And the conference social will be starting in about 5 minutes time. So take your chance to stretch your legs, grab refreshment, and get ready for 1 hour of the amazing race. Anyway, we'll be back in 5 minutes.
making me moody. In the deep woods, alone with my feels, spend too much time thinking. In the end, you'll be with me.
Okay, the negative minutes says that obviously I need to be here rather than sitting on mute. All right, so being a virtual event, unfortunately we can't do a social event in person. So we are going to have a virtual social event. So good to see that so many of you have stayed on here. Social event is going to take place really as an online game, which you're all going to join. We're going to share the URL for that game shortly on the screen. It's already been posted on the conference website. But before we talk about all that, we have 3 sponsors of this social event I mentioned earlier on today. They are Globe, Microsoft, and Netflix. So let's start off by playing the conference social videos.
We are excited to be here at the APRICOT conference, and we are looking forward to connecting with you all during the social. So feel free to reach out. Hope you enjoy the conference, and later tonight or this week, some of our amazing contents as well. Thank you.
Welcome to Azure Orbital. This ground station as a service offering is part of our network and is one of many ground stations that extend the reach of our cloud to space. It links businesses to satellites to support new data services and improve communications around the world.
All right, short and sweet. Those were the videos of our conference social sponsors. Now, you all have about, let me see, the clock says, yeah, you have 7 minutes to move over to the Banana Live website. So I reckon the easiest way, it's a link on the conference social page. So it's now being displayed on the screen in front of you. Rather than cutting and pasting off the Zoom screen, maybe we can get it dropped in the chat as well. Otherwise, you can go to the APRICOT website, click on the socials tab, click on conference social. And on that page, the conference social page, you will have the link. If you're logged in, you will have the link to go to the Banana Live platform. The 2 links, one for full audio video experience. Make sure you have headphones. You need to use headphones. It will not work if you don't have headphones. So you can use just this earbuds or AirPods, that's fine too. Make sure you're using the latest version of Firefox, Chrome, or the Edge web browser. And it's generally suggested to close all the other browser tabs so that you get the full experience from your browser. And it's also best not to be on a VPN because it quite likely will not work over a VPN area. So let me just drop this in the chat. Seen it, so let me just drop it in the chat. Okay, edit, paste. There we go. So go to there in the chat. If you're logged in, you will see the 2 links available. One link is if you have a camera on your laptop or you have good internet connection. The other one will not use video, and it's or if you don't have a webcam. Otherwise, so please go there now. The game will start in exactly 5 minutes, so please don't be late. When you join the game, you'll be in a kind of reception lobby. The game host will meet you there, and then, well, once it's start time in 5 minutes, the game will then start. So please join it, have fun. It lasts about an hour, so hope you enjoy it and have a great social event and great social evening. And I'll see you there shortly. Thanks, everyone. So everyone, we've got about 30 participants in the game so far. So we have a few more places available. So I'd encourage you to go there as quickly as you can. The game will start in 2 minutes from now. We won't wait, so please move over. This Zoom session will stop in exactly a couple of minutes time. And if you're still here and still listening, please join the social. Otherwise, we will see you tomorrow for the second day of APRICOT 2022.